afternoon, everybody. It's Valerie Ling, clinical psychologist, director, founder of the Center for Effective Living. Just having a rather interesting day today. Struggled a little bit to think about, would I really share this on a live vlog? Did I actually dare to divulge that I'm actually not feeling on top of things? And it's really been bugging me. So today's segment, it being Wednesday, is called Behind the Scenes. And what I endeavor to do when I do a segment on behind the scenes is to keep it real and to actually share something behind the scenes in my own world. Even though I'm a psychologist, I am human. And I thought, yeah, just to keep it real, I'd have a segment every week where I just grab something from my world that I was actually running through in my head, and as a psychologist, trying to arrive at a point of balance or at least some insight into problem solving, what to do if I don't feel, particularly today, like I was on top of things. Okay, I'm just going to get my Facebook Live all set up, and maybe, just maybe, I might actually grab some people who might happen chance to watch this while I go live. Okay, so here we are. I'm sitting very comfortably today at the moment, feeling very natural in my surroundings, and calmed myself down to the point where I am feeling the freedom to share what I'm about to share. So this week I've had some frustrations. It's nobody's fault. It's just life. Life happens. I am an accredited practitioner of a type of a personality assessment, one type of personality assessment called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Now, it's not a clinical test. It's, I kind of have to wear two different hats when I'm using this instrument. I do have some prior training and experience in organizational psychology. And so when we're talking about team development, communication, and just self-awareness and insight in a non-clinical setting, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is a personality test that is very, very useful. And it's been in my world for the last 20 years. So I tend to think about personality sometimes when I'm interacting with people and trying to figure myself out through this lens. Now, one of the dimensions of this personality type is a dimension called the judging or perceiving dimension. The judging or perceiving dimension has got to do with the way that we orientate ourselves to our outer world. Okay, so some people have what they call a judging preference, which means that they tend to use a function of judging or deciding to organize their outer world. And what this means is that they like decisive action. They want things to be closed and settled and planned, and the decision made so that they can move on. And some people have preferred the perceiving function. The perceiving function is the opposite, really, because in the way that the person with the perceiving function orientates themselves, they prefer to remain flexible and adaptable and having more information and being exploratory in their outer world, and usually delaying decisions until they feel that they've got adequate information. Now, when I was a HR consultant in my early years, we'd do this neat little exercise where we'd ask people to gather into their judging preference, one group, and their perceiving preference would be the other group. So let me ask you the question, and maybe you might be able to see which group you would be in. I would get them to, hi there, if you're here listening to me, throw me a wave, because I'd love to see who I'm talking to, because most of the time when I'm like this, I just see my face. So hello Noni, nice to see you, thanks for watching. So the exercise we would do for these two groups after they'd done their personality assessment and they knew which groups they belonged to, is I'd give them a quick little exercise to say, pretend that you're going on a holiday next month. I'd like you to just gather in your group and just on a flip chart, just map out what you would do from this point onwards, from today. Once you've decided that you're going on holiday, what would you do? And you would see that the judging group would straight away get into action mode. There usually will be a whole bunch of to-do lists and checklists, and inadvertently someone would say we have to actually get online and check, visa requirements and weather and natural disasters, and then there'd be a whole checklist of things, people to call and information to gather through to a packing list, and they would want to book way in advance for the holiday. The perceiving group, on the other hand, would usually sit very laid back, still be in their seat. There'd be no action, no to-do list, and no flip charts. And they would just be talking about all the different things they'd want to see, and thinking about what kind of countries and food. And, they would just stay in that space, just gathering sort of a discussion about holidays and what fed their soul, whether they like cycling, whether they like food. And, in terms of actually planning to go for the holiday, their approach was, okay, once they had the date locked in, they would arrive at that point, probably the day before or the week before, and then start gathering what they needed. Now, it doesn't mean that those two groups, one is more planned than the other. It actually just means that there are two different ways of organizing or orientating yourself to your world, and both can work, as long as you understand your strengths and weaknesses, and especially if you're doing things together, that you would communicate. Now, I belong to the first group. I have a judging preference. I have a strong judging preference, which means I'm not judgmental. I better not be. I'm a psychologist. Nani, which one do you relate to? I'd be curious to know, actually, which one I don't think there is a particular preference for psychologists per se, although we have a very academic discipline, so I don't know if that would differentiate us a bit. But anyways, I have that preference, and my world feels ordered and centered when I'm ticking things off a to-do list. And I like to have to-do lists. And I also like decisions to be made, and I like them to work. Once they're made, I just want them to work. I don't like changes. And unfortunately, this week, quite a lot of my plans, all my to-do lists that I had ticked off, didn't work. And then I thought, oh no, because this is actually going to interrupt all my other to-do lists and the other things that need to get done. And I noticed myself frowning a lot more, and I noticed myself getting agitated a lot more, and I was telling people I was fed up, and I just wanted to just explode or something. And it only took a big long walk last night to actually reflect on what I was experiencing. What am I actually experiencing? Well, what I was experiencing was a sense of feeling out of control. I was being reliant on plans and to-do lists and structures and rigidity, assuming that that was going to mean that I would feel settled and in control. But that is a myth, because life happens. So what did I eventually decide to do? Well, I decided that I actually needed to pull back and appreciate that that is one type of my personality. But I have friends who have another type, the perceiving type. And I recognize that I actually needed to practice using that side of my personality, because the situation that I was in was actually aggravating. If I had persisted with my rigidity, it would not have worked. So being flexible, being adaptable, and problem solving, and actually asking for help, reaching out to other people who are much better at being flexible and adaptable. And so last night after my walk, I came home and reached out to someone whom I know is quite the opposite. Well, not really the opposite, but has a greater appreciation of being able to be flexible and adaptable when plans don't go well. And they helped me to actually come up with at least 3 things that I needed to feel like I could keep moving, and I could delay feeling like I needed to problem solve and change all the other things to have a to-do list with the other things. As long as I had those 3 things in my day today, then I would feel like, yeah, there's still a forward movement even if my plans aren't going well. So what's the take home for me, and maybe for you if you're experienced this before, and if you're someone like me that likes predictability and control? Well, one is to recognize that it doesn't always work that way. Second is to pull back and engage in some flexible and adaptable thinking, and to just head for 3 things. Really, what are the 3 things that you really, really need to see happen this week? And then schedule everything else for a time, maybe next week when you're in calmer headspace, maybe had the chance using that perceiving function to actually gather more information, explore options, not feeling the push to make decisions. And the third thing that I found really helpful was I actually engaged in intentionally looking for 3 wins or 3 things I could be grateful for in my day. The first day I had some help because I couldn't find anything to feel grateful for. I was just tunneling down, and I said to myself, goodness me, is my world just about things not going right? And so I actually reached out to my Facebook friends and asked them and said, you know, what are some 3 things that you are grateful for? And as that came back, I actually realized that I could be grateful for the things that were right in front of me. It was a wonderful list that people sent to me, and that really helped me. So the third thing is, what are the 3 things you can be grateful for? Because that actually really anchors and focuses our sense that just because some things aren't working, it doesn't mean that all things aren't working. All right, then, I'll leave you with that, and I'll catch you later. Bye.